Hey, youths. So just a quick kind of detour in terms of why all this is happening. And again, it's up to you to kind of think about it yourself and decide whether or not you believe in this stuff. But in terms of different alignments, so it's just to remember that we are, like as humans, we like to think we're the center of the universe, but we're not. We're just these little humans running around on this little planet, connected to a solar system, connected to a galaxy, connected to the universe, and it's like infinite. So when you actually put yourself in place in this universe, we're just like tiny little molecular particles. And then when you start to put those alignments, these bigger planetary movements in place, there are certain patterns that start to emerge. And then when you bring in history, this is why you go to school, kids, right? You bring in history overlaying the events and the way that the planets align, and you start to see certain patterns. So last year was a huge planetary kind of event, and it hadn't happened quite like this for 400 years. And 400 years ago was the Reformation. For those of you who do history, then it's the time in Europe where we went through this huge upsurging of power. And what happened was the peasants at that time revolted up. There was this whole breakdown of the Catholic Church. I mean, a lot of structures that were really set in stone were smashed. Not smashed to pieces, but they were reformed, they were changed, they were shifted. And the little people, the peasants, got a lot more power. They started earning a living. It was the kind of destruction of serfdom. There was an awful lot of stuff happening. Last year, very similar themes. You've got this beginning of the power, the Black Lives Matter movement. You've got a lot more rising in terms of the LGBT, sorry if I got the terminology wrong, but the whole idea of really coming into more power. And these themes are going to continue all the way through the 20s, because this is the movement and it's connected to the planets. So, I mean, like, you can look at it and go, well, do I believe in horoscopes? Do I believe in Chinese stuff? I mean, that to me is irrelevant, because it's not really talking about what we're talking about. We're talking about the influences of much bigger bodies of energy. So for example, the moon cycle. Now, for many of you, you kind of tap into this. If you haven't, then start to look at, when are those times where I don't get a good night's sleep? Probably a full moon. And when are those times where I feel more emotional? Again, probably around a full moon. There are reasons for this, because the moon affects things like tide. Now, if the moon affects tides, then surely it's going to affect all the water in our system, of which 75% is water. There's going to be a movement, right? And in terms of the sun, like, solar flares actually knock out electrical systems on planet Earth. It can shut down power stations. So it's like, well, okay, if the Earth is able to do that and shut down power grids, sorry, if the sun is able to do that and knock out power grids, then what kind of effect is it happening on our human body? So expanding your viewpoint, there are things that are much bigger than us affecting us. And so not only affecting the physical structures of this planet, but also the emotional and thought structures of this planet as well. And we being part of that. So the reason 2020 was such a massive year for all of us, was because of this kind of planetary alignment. Now, that's what I believe. You might not believe that, but there are certainly coincidences at play here, right? And this is what the astrologers look at. They look at what are the patterns, and those patterns are built around historical patterns. So it's like researching, right? You're looking at the data, you're looking at what happened. Now, whatever your belief system is, whether you believe that or not, doesn't really matter. The bigger question is, can you feel, like, don't get stuck, right? It's kind of like really start to feel into, in your own life as it's playing out, like, how are you feeling differently? And then move with that. So take advantage of it as it starts to shift. What are some of the lessons you learned in 2020 when you were cocooning? And what are some of the lessons that you can take forward with you, take advantage of, right? And in terms of the previous time it happened 400 years ago, there was a huge shift in social structure. Now, do you want to take advantage of that or not? Like, do you want to change things or not? And these are all the questions that you ask yourself. Like, are you satisfied with the way things are going and the way that you're allowed to exist on this planet, or do you want to make things better? And it's really as simple as that. And then you just grab the energy, because it's very advantageous in the next 10 years. And you guys as youths have a lot more power and a lot more ability to move things than you think. So that's the message for you guys. Go do it.